Well, hey guys, it's Captain Matt here, the Lighting Trade School Podcast. No, hey guys, Captain Matt here, Lighting Trade School Podcast. We're talking about sin number 4, future considerations. Nate, you have a lot of traffic going on at your house there. Anyways, guys, so I want to first off talk about we just got back from a badass desert trip. We were all out in the desert together at Nate's compound. I think this was the most fun trip yet for the ride. Got my own helmet, had my own comms. So did Shane. We felt like we were really finally part of the Illuminator Club and the Dusty Badgers. Really good time. Nate, how'd you get started like inviting random lighting guys out to the desert to hang out with you? What's up with that?
Started with reward trips when I owned Unique Lighting. We've always been desert rats. I mean, we've been going to the desert since I've been 14, so that's over 50 years now. Love the desert, love Ocotillo Wells. There's nothing more thrilling. So that just naturally was an extension as a reward trip because who doesn't like going into the outdoor space, running around trying to kill yourself?
And what about you, Shane? Because this was what year was it for you?
This was year number 2. Yeah, so I don't think I would ever miss it. I think, Matt, I may even say like I identify as a desert rat now.
Oh, so, all right.
I think the first year you invited me, I was like, man, I'm not going to waste my time. Like, sounds cool, but I'll pass. But once you actually get behind an ATV and you're going 60, 70 miles an hour across the desert, middle of nowhere, 100 miles in every direction, doing scary crap, you would never miss it.
Yeah, we had one guy, right? I think it was his first time in the at least in the California desert, where he was doing 60 miles an hour. It's all dusty. It's like a whiteout. Hits a turn but doesn't turn. Just snaps the whole wheels underneath the machine. Everyone rags on him. He was fine. He's also the one who doesn't think you should wear a helmet, which Nate never agrees with. But also one thing I love is not only that we're riding the UTVs out there, we're having a ton of fun is afterwards, right? Going back to Nate's compound, he's got this, apron that says, "I will feed you fuckers." And boy, does he live by that, man. He feeds you. I mean, it's all unhealthy. It's horrible. So, I mean, like if you're on a diet, bring your own food. But the conversations, the relationship building to me, like after the ride, you kind of build that camaraderie during the ride, but then afterwards you get to talk about business, life, all this stuff in a totally different setting than you ever would. What do you guys like that aspect of it too, or what?
Yeah, there's nothing better. I mean, the thing that we didn't usually do, which we usually do, but we didn't sit around the fire this time because it was kind of windy a couple of the nights. But yeah, there's nothing better than sitting around smoking cigars, having a few cocktails, right? Reliving some of the hazards of the day.
Right. Or like if you're Shane, you'll just take a cigar and waste my cigars and never actually light it. But whatever.
Hey, but getting back to Silas, how he broke his front wheel, missing that corner. So the reason he wasn't whining after that event, you guys missed it, but I did give him a baby pacifier at the beginning of the day. Told him when he crashes or is in dust, there is no whining, there is no crying, suck on the pacifier.
Nice. Also real quick, me and Shane. Now Shane is an official Slab City. He's thinking about moving there, creating Slab City Glow Geeks. It's pretty exciting. If you don't know what Slab City is, go ahead and YouTube and check out Slab City. Shane, are you moving there, bud? I mean, everyone there is from Texas.
Yeah, I got some family members I'm considering helping move there. if y'all have never heard of Slab City, you need to Google it, just YouTube it. It is crazy. It's like a hippie Skid Row meets Mad Max. That's the way I think of it. It's just crazy. Like, who in the world want to live with no plumbing, no power, and live there for years happily? I interviewed folks. I should post that on YouTube. Yeah. I had a blast interviewing the local slabbers.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, and there's no laws, right? So
I remember the first time I ever went to Slab City, I literally had a gun in a chest harness thing because I was so freaked out about these weirdos. And they're weirdos, but they're semi-nice weirdos. But if you're a child molester or murderer, this is where you're hanging out.
Yeah, sure. All right. Well, that was our last week. We had a great time. One of the cool things is, being one of Nate's mentees and really doing a ton of good work in landscape lighting and lifetime lighting purchases and stuff like that. It's something that I look forward to, and everyone can at some point too. With that being said, let's jump into future considerations, 7 deadly sins of landscape lighting. When I think of future considerations, this topic here too can also be very expansive, right? It's not just one topic, kind of like design, right? Because you've got the future considerations when you're designing something, when you're installing something, wiring and pigtails and things like that. Shane, when you think of future considerations, what's like the top 3 things that off the top of your head that you think of when you're thinking about this deadly sin?
I talked about this during the quote in the proposal process that we're going to do it, because most folks probably don't. I think all 3 of you guys would agree that any client, if you serve them well and did a great design, they are 100% going to add more lights down the road. 100%. So we're prepping for that. So some things that I think of is, well, having the right size power supply to be able to outfit more fixtures, being able to record that so you know where you can add fixtures and on what power supply, the right size wire on longer runs so you could add more wire. Add more fixtures. And then maybe when you're crossing the driveway, laying down some extra wire, cost you a couple extra bucks before you caulk it back over, and leave it and cap it at the end so you know where it's at. Maybe put a little hub box on it. Those are 3 things that come to my mind. Ooh, one more. So if we always bonus round. So we leave pigtails on our fixtures or in our home boxes in a mulch bed or something. So we have an extra line that we could easily just tap into and add a fixture without re-breaking up grease tubes and going through that.
Yeah. And Nate, obviously all of this sounds probably like you said it because you taught us both, but anything top 3 that, or maybe not top 3 for you, Nate, what are, the top 3 things that most guys are forgetting when it comes to future considerations?
So real quick, getting back to the change you said about adding that extra line, we call that auxiliary tap. And that goes at any type of major point of connection in a junction box, in a home box, at the end of a line, just an auxiliary tap coming off, an auxiliary line 12 inches capped off, so you can check voltages, add separate fixtures. It's really one of the smartest things ever that we came across a couple, 4, 5, 6 years ago, or 10 years ago when we figured that out. But so future considerations might be one of the most important 7 deadly sins, and that's hard to say because they're all very, very, very important. But the 3 things I think, and at the very minimum, and there's probably 10, it guarantees your referral base. It guarantees happy customer. It guarantees that you can tell someone to go by and look at a job, on XYZ Street 3 years down the road. It guarantees extra residual income in the future for you. It's an extra bonus. And you have to be able to set things up in the beginning, future considerations, as you wire it and do different things to simplify your maintenance. So maintenance, future consideration is beyond important. And just a really quick story. One of the very first lighting jobs I ever did back in the mid 1980s, before I started my full-time lighting company, did it for a guy by the name of Jack Sherrington. It was about 10 grand. And I did it and never did any maintenance, ever had future considerations. A couple of years go by. I hear through the grapevine, I'm a POS. Don't use me. I suck. I'm the worst guy in the world. He's super pissed off. Do you think he ever gets on the phone and calls me? And I know this guy. Not one time did he pick up the phone and call me. So I called Jack. Jack, what the hell is wrong with you? Everything's effed up. This is the worst thing ever. So I go over to his house. Dogs had, ripped up wires, answering the timers. Fucking lenses are all messed up with calcium deposits from ink. And I'm like, how the heck you, Jack? Why are you pissed off at me? This is not my fault. He looked at me in the eye and said, it's 100% your fault. You see my pool over there? You think when the guy built the pool, he said, oh, maintenance free. Don't do anything. He said, if you don't hire a maintenance contractor this week and have him put bleach or, chlorine in it and scrub it and clean it every week, it's going to turn into an algae pond. He told me that. What did you tell me? Nothing. You took my money and left. Boy, did that teach me a big goddamn lesson. So basically, then on, maintenance contracts, which leads into future considerations, which leads into how do I maintain that job correctly through as-built, amperages, right? The critical for, and a lot of different things that obviously we'll get into. But yeah, it's beyond imperative, right? Because you'll never get a referral from anybody without maintaining that system.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And luckily, you taught me that on early, like right away. So I've been able to do that. And maintenance is, can be it can be almost a separate division once you grow. Once you have 50 to 100 clients, that will self-fund, one maintenance guy just maintaining those systems, because they won't just maintain them, right? It's not. And when I say maintenance, right, cleaning the fixtures, re-aiming, pruning any bush growth or anything like that that's come over, maybe adding a few lights, but adding a few lights is where it even adds up more, right? Because when I tell my clients is, hey, when I'm here on a maintenance call or a maintenance visit, right, I can add fixtures cheaper than coming in to do a full phase where I send a full crew out. We're doing a full day of work. Maintenance guy, 1 or 2 guys adding 3, 4 fixtures extra, if I can average my maintenance visit over the course of everyone I maintain to $1,000, like that adds up super quick. Shane, do you do that now too? Do you kind of hope for, do you like have any path that the client follows to add a fixture or two when you're doing maintenance, or do you even do maintenance right now?
Yes and yes. So for us, a maintenance call, is half maintenance, half sales call. I mean, our goal is to add fixtures, and we keep fixtures in our trailer just for that. Yeah. And we're always suggesting, to put lights in other areas. We'll even demo it. So we just did this I think last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, and we added 20 fixtures on a maintenance call.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. My biggest maintenance call visit was adding an additional, I think it was like 47, 48 lights. And if I wasn't there for that maintenance call, he would have never called. I mean, maybe he called in a couple of years, but because I was there, it was about maybe 7, 8 months after the install. I said, hey, what about doing this, tree line over here? Like that would really add to your property. And he was just, let's do it. Right? We already had built that relationship. There wasn't any pushback. But if I had not been there doing the maintenance, that was an extra, 30 grand probably. I don't know the exact amount, but there's a lot of money for, adding on to that average for my maintenance calls. You have something to add there, Nate?
Yeah. So when you're out, and obviously it's an income stream, like you said, besides the maintenance, you want to add stuff. And then when you keep good records and you've done 50, 100 jobs, year 2, 3, 4, and 5. So basically every 5 years, you imagine that, you're going to have to replace every lamp on a property. So if you've done a 100 light job, well, technically you want to do a thing called group relamp. So you don't want to, when you start having lamp failures, 3 go out, 4 go out, 5 go out, replace them all, right? Because they're all going to start failing, and homeowners get pissed off. Well, you were just out here 3 weeks ago and replaced light bulbs, and I got 3 more out. Well, yeah, they're all going to fail. So the income starts almost exponential. That not only are you adding lights all the time, now that's a miracle when you added a $30,000 light job, but it's not uncommon to add 2 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights. Trees grow. Trees are getting bigger and bigger. So when you had 1 light or 2 lights in, now I need 3 or 4. So part of our as-built and our package, we would have a future consideration, a tree growth schedule that would be in a file that would say, hey, year 5, we're going to need to add 3 or 4 lights on a tree. So yeah, those jobs end up being those maintenance contracts end up being mini jobs all the time. And that's just so cool for revenue. And the homeowners are beyond happy because as the yard develops and starts looking better, the lighting looks better.
Yeah. Well, you just said a wealth there on a couple different things I kind of want to dive into a little bit more. One, kind of talk about, you were talking about relamping, and right, you have 100 different clients, you're doing maintenance on 100 different clients. Also goes back to what we talked about in one of the other podcasts where our wattages and beam spreads, right? We know that we have 99% for is going to be a 4-watt 36 or a 4-watt 60. That's what we keep in the trucks. Now we have path lights and stuff like that too. But imagine, this is where we talk about future considerations too, is if you have to keep a truck with 10 degree, 10 degree, 15 degree, 80 degree, 27K, 30K, 5,000K, like that is a nightmare. And that is a big reason a lot of those guys aren't going to get into maintenance. How can you send a maintenance crew out? You're going to have to set up a whole van with basically a little store inside, right? So, I mean, I know you do the same thing, Shane, but Nate, I guess when you were, coming up or when you had Unique and all that, did you see that a lot where was that any of the pushback of why guys, because I see all the time, people do not service. They do not do maintenance. I talk to clients, they have it 2-3 years. They don't even know who installed the lights because they've never reached back out. Did you see that a lot? I mean, because you've dealt with thousands and thousands of contractors.
Nothing changes. People get dumber, not smarter. I don't know. That's a whole nother podcast, right?
Yeah.
But no, nothing changes, right? Look, we're all homeowners. You think my pool guy just installed the pool, no instruction, just walks away, right? They don't think about maintenance, right? And I mean, who knows why? But
Sure.
we have an obligation to teach people to start doing it the right way. And if you don't want to have a maintenance division, because it really is a separate division, like you said, Matt, make a partnership with somebody and hand it off. Just like pool contractors typically don't do maintenance, but they have a Rolodex of who they recommend, right? So, go network with somebody. Got to have maintenance. Those lighting jobs they're in a harsh environment. They will start deteriorating the day after they're installed.
Yeah. And dogs and kids and forget about it, right?
It's a nightmare. Lightmare,
so,
should say.
Lightmare. So Nate, they was talking about adding 2 and 4 fixtures. Now this is something that I, like to do. I need to do better at it. So Shane, you keep some fixtures on the truck. Now, how do you approach that on a maintenance call with a client? Do you tell them advance? Do you say, hey, it's X amount per fixture? Or like when someone wants to add it, kind of quickly give me an eagle eye overview of what happens. If you're coming, you did my landscape lighting, now you're coming to my house 6 months, a year later, what would I expect? How would you pitch it to me? Stuff like that.
So we do have what we call a 12-point, inspection, where we do a 12-point touch on every fixture. Some of that's really fluff in there, but I mean, the main things, like we're going to clean the lens, we're going to test the voltage, we're going to put insect repellent. We're going to adjust it, if we need to, or slightly move it back if the tree grew, whatever. But on one of those 12 is we're going to give you future recommendations or additional recommendations. I forget how I worded it. And I don't necessarily know if they read that and they're expecting that, but we do kind of plant the seed, like, hey, we're gonna mention and recommend something. Think of us as like a light doctor to your property, and we're going to recommend something that the health of your lighting system might need. And a lot of times they even ask you beforehand. Well, hey, do you think we can add a light? I just added a flagpole, or can we add an extra light to this tree? Very, very common.
Sure. So you're not actually having your maintenance guy or you or your sales guy call or email beforehand. Hey, your maintenance visits, Tuesday, next Tuesday. Are there a few fixtures that you want us to add there? We can do it for a lot cheaper. Maybe it's $250 a light while we're there, or $175, whatever the case might be. You don't do that. It's kind of like just plant the seed and hope they call.
So we plant the seed from the time of install. They're going to need maintenance and they're going to want more lights. And then when we actually are doing the maintenance, we plant that seed again in the quote. We do have automations that go out 48 hours before the visit. This is what we're there to do. But
nice.
No, I do not pick up the phone and actively call, hey, do you want to add a fixture? How many fixtures? This is the price. It's more, we just stock the truck and trailer and make the sell on site. And there could be a better way. That's just the way we do it, and it seems to work for us.
Hell yeah. Nate, now, do you have any insights into that or what work? I mean, I know, when you were full-time lighting installer contractor guy was different times, but, what's your recommendation or insight from whether it's you or seeing, and obviously you're surrounded by lighting guys every day, all day. So, what's working for them for maintenance and selling more than just a maintenance package?
So I don't think anything ever changes as far as what I did 35 years ago till today, right? You have the premise of sales or sales, and adding
Yep.
value to the customer. And I always believe in added value. So we were always prepared. We were coming up with new ideas, right? Whether it could be a tiki torch, whether it could be enchanter hanging into a tree, whether it be going from halogen to LEDs, there's always something that you can pull out of your right toolbox and be able to add value to the homeowner, like especially the tiki torches, right? So, I mean, I can give you an example of 2 months ago. I had a tiki torch in my in my Porsche, and I decided, fuck it, I'm just gonna go by and, so I just snapped a picture, right? Send it to the client. We had 10 tiki torches on his house. I was going up to Big Bear and at the tiki torch, went by another client, told another 10 lights. So, when we were doing the maintenance, install the tiki torches. So, but there's a lot of times, like Shane said in the beginning, and on one of our schedules, it's like, what are the homeowners' plans? Are they putting a putting green in? Are they adding a really tricked out swing set for their kids, right? What are they doing down the road? So then we're going to plan, right? And they're already set up for the future growth to the trees with our tree schedule, right? Yep. So they're already in tune that we're adding lights, right? So they know 100%. So we technically never even get permission, right? When we add lights on the tree, when we add lights on the putting green, when we add lights on the play swing, right? Because they're already in tune to what we do. So yeah, but every job, and then the other thing that I would make sure my guys did is I wanted to capitalize on the exposure that we created. I would have my guys door hanger, surrounding areas, right? Especially the immediate neighbors and things like that. So I could get multiple jobs from the exposure I was creating from that one.
Yeah. I'm going to show just a couple quick pictures talking about future considerations during the design phase. So Shane, if you want to take the wheel in terms of once I start presenting, making sure I don't go infinite
Sure.
screen here. Share screen, entire screen. Oh, share. Here we go. All right. So here is this one. Oh, you guys see my screen there?
Yep.
Yeah, cool. So this was a larger project, right? So future considerations is when this client called me, he didn't ask for all of this stuff in the backyard. He actually originally called me about a couple of lights to fix here, right? So future considerations, right? I did send this image to the client, right? I'm planting, the seed. Here's your main viewing angle. Well, it's not just your patio that matters, right? We have all of this stuff over here. We have trees with rock river. We have tall grass. We have a middle mulch bed area, and we have this back tree line. So this right here is future considerations, even when talking to the client, kind of build them up to realize like, okay, this project, we don't have to do it all at once, but this is a multi-trip project. This is future considerations of what you're going to add. And then in that same vein, same thing, right? Your zone 1, zone 2, and zone 3. Maybe they don't want to do it all at once. Again, I didn't do any of these zones. I did a zone that you can't even see here on the screen, right? But planted the seed to do more. Shane, do you do anything like these?
Matt, I think you do an amazing job at planting the seed and pre-quoting out phases. So yes, we do it. I would say you do it better. So I like that. We definitely quote extra phases and give them a deal if they want to do multiple phases. But I would also say you guys have more $3+ million homes than I do here in San Antonio. So I think it depends a lot on the scale of the home. This is not like an average install for me, but when you get these, 100+ fixture jobs, yeah, we absolutely want to plant that seed and phase it out.
Sure. I'm going to pull up one other one here. Well, this is that same house. Again, right. Zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. I want to do all. Obviously, I want the clients to always do it all, right? Like just let me do it. Give me a blank check and let me go to town. That's not really realistic. Nate, you've been in the game longer than anybody, and you have reputation as an amazing designer. Do you often, even to this day, get a blank check when you show up to a new client's house like this?
I would say never in the beginning, does the client ever think they're giving me a blank check? But by the end of either the demo, the dissertation, allowing the client to go from phase 1 or zone 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, it ends up almost becoming a blank check just because I gain their trust. And as we all know, for sales guys, without trust, it's the foundation of sales. And the magnitude and the overwhelming appreciation the client gets, not only from that and the usability of the space, it's not hard. That's the amazing thing about, and when you go back, Matt and Shane, when you go back to when I was a lighting guy in the early 90s, they didn't have these homes today. So when you get back to what we talked about, they're adding a bocce ball court, or they're adding a putting green, or they're adding swing sets. They didn't have any of that crap back in the day, technically. These people go to home shows now. They're always thinking, what's the newest thing I can add in my yard? Oh, a barbecue with this, a sunken pit. Oh my God, these tables that have fire coming out of them, right? It's mind-blowing. So without light, you can't enjoy anything. So it's easier and easier as time goes on to be able to do the whole yard, right? Because how do you pick and choose which part of the yard you're going to want to go into in the evening? It's no different between do you do part of the lighting in your home, or you do it all? No, do it all, right? Because if you don't have light in every room, you're not going to use those rooms at night. So I'm just finding more and more that people never expect that you're going to do a 100 light job, but I don't even know the last time I ever did anything under 100 lights. I mean, it's just
so then we all eventually get there. And Cap, I got this from you, and I just recently, you told me, even if a customer says they want you to quote everything, still break it out in phases, because you throw a big $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 number at them. It's a little bit of a sticker shock. But if you break it up into 5 different zones or phases, all $10,000 each, it's a little softer. And a job, funny enough, we just closed this morning. We just got his deposit in. This was a simple home. I'll probably call it a $900,000 home. There's nothing really overly exciting about it, but he had a really just badass backyard. So we quoted 175 fixtures. Well, I guess that blew him away a little bit, but the design, he was completely 100% sold on us. So he came back, and we ended up kind of tailoring it down to about a $13,000 job. So we still are doing a third or less of what we overall wanted to do, but we planted that seed. I could have done a better job at making that into 4 different zones or phases.
Sure. Yeah, I will say, like, the funny thing with the phases is, again, when I've pitched those big jobs where the client literally says, I don't want to do phases, I just want to do the whole thing. I've never closed a single person that I've pitched just the full package to. I've sold the full package, but only when broken down. I think maybe clients also like the choices when I do it. And also with the phases is part of that. It came from Nate, because when Nate told me to do phases, I think I took it a little too literal, but it's ended up working out well. Nate's like, do backyard, side yard, front yard. Well, then I took the front yard and I would phase out the front yard. I'd phase out the backyard. So then, I might have 6, 12, 10 phases total, but that's obviously constantly showing them what can be done, and why a lot of my clients, end up adding every 4 to 5 months to add another phase or 2, because they already know. I don't have to repitch it. They've seen it. They see the first couple phases. They like them. Boom, boom, boom. So, that's kind of how that went from basically misunderstanding Nate about what phasing meant. So thanks, Nate.
So we will phase, but I guess different than presenting a proposal like you guys doing a breakdown deal. We'll go out and, this just happened to a baseball player up in Temecula, California, Reed Johnson. And he had called us up there, and his budget was $10,000. Now this guy's got money, beautiful house, many acres. And, he has a set, he doesn't want to spend a dime over 10,000. Now I know I can extract more money from him. He needs a 250, 270 lights, which are 100% spot on, Shane. There is no way I can pitch 270 lights and walk away with a $75,000 contract. Impossible. So I'm going to take his $10,000 budget, and I did a section of his backyard. And I said, here's your budget, and this is what we're doing. Well, we added 275 lights, right? And then what we did is while we're installing the $10,000 phase one, if you will, even though it wasn't broken down into phases, we were demoing and adding fixtures as we were progressing on. So every night he got to see the expansion of space to his backyard, to his side yard, to his front yard, down his driveway, and 275 lights later, right? He was the happiest guy in the world. So that's how I do phases technically. Just, like the blob, we just keep expanding, right?
Yeah.
And then they're always happy, and and then the wife will come out, and you're like, sometimes you can just unplug it, that zone, if you will. You're expanding in space, and you're like, well, if you can't afford it, we got lighting repossession. And we just unplug it, and then it goes instantly into dark, and they're like, God damn you, put it in, right?
Nice.
So,
yeah, one
trick.
Yeah, going off of that, right? One of the fun future consideration stories I have is a client was having a big party, and they hired me to do, well, first they wanted me to fix the stuff, whatever. I did it, and maybe it was like 75 or 80 fixtures was the approval. I knew this yard was so badass, and they're having a party at the end of the week. I called up Nate. I was like, Nate, ship me anything you can right now. And he's shipping me by the day, right? Just like, okay, I got this ready to go, this ready to go. I had some specific things I needed. So I ended up with that 70 fixtures. I installed 222 fixtures. I buried the wire and everything. He hadn't approved it. And I said to him, well, I want your party to look good. If you like them, you can pay me. And if you don't, we'll rip them out. That was a huge risk. It paid off.
That's bold.
But it does make me want to try it again. So future consideration 2 is, right, like we just saw those zones. So let's pretend, there's a garden bed. Like we'll even take the one out here, right? I did uplights and moonlights on my trees. So if in the first phase, I only get the client to sign on for uplight, maybe we don't know each other yet. I couldn't demo the downlights well, whatever the case might be. I only sell the uplights. I'm going to make sure I run a line and have those pigtails, the auxiliary taps, ready to add the moonlights when they come. That way I'm not opening up the earth again. I'm not having to retrench, run wires across the same one, which then you end up snapping the wire you already ran. Shane, do you run extra wire too? Like I know for me, like in that case, right? Like I might even run a dedicated 12-2 out to a spot that we're not even lighting. Maybe it's about 50 feet away, just because I got the crew there. It's already opened up. Instead of ripping up their lawn again, just make that quick run and basically, know that if you do your job, lighting's addictive, they're going to add. Do you do that in your jobs currently?
100%. It takes no extra labor, right? An extra $20 in wire. Who cares? May as well.
Right.
I love your bold move of installing 50 extra lights. I only did that once in a customer that we were going to light up their tile roof. They had a really cool tile roof, and I threw some skyliners on it, maybe 8 of them, and lit up their roof. And I told them, if you don't like it, I'll take it down. Of course, they loved it. That, I thought was bold because we had to get a 40-foot ladder to do it. And it's a lot of extra work, but it was not 150 fixtures. It was bold as heck.
It was bold. Luckily, that one paid off. I can't say I haven't tried it again. So maybe I should. Maybe that's a new marketing strategy. Just showing up to a random person's house, doing a 20 to 40 light job, sending them a bill.
Just make sure you look at their tax return before you throw 150 lights.
Yes, for the right client.
Yeah, gotta be the right client.
This was a castle. This could have, this would have been 1,000+ fixtures if I had time. But what's that?
Never mind.
Oh boy. I want to talk about something huge that I definitely didn't do well in the beginning. Then we did it a little bit. Probably don't do it well enough. It's one of the hardest parts for me. And it's one of the things Nate screams about the most is the as-built. And Nate is a really good drawer. Is that a word? Drawer? He can draw really well. So he can do these beautiful as-builts. I should have pulled some up. Mine are a lot uglier. I've been using company cam now to kind of show where. It's nowhere near Nate's level, but I also see other guys using like CAD documents and shit like that. And there's zero possibility I'm going to be doing a CAD document for every as-built. Like just realistically, it's not scalable for what I'm doing. Shane, what do you use right now for as-builts, or do you even do as-builts?
Yeah, same. I can't draw worth squat. It would come out looking incredibly stupid. Nate even says take a picture, lay a thing over it, trace it over. Nate makes it really easy. For us, what we do is we also use company cam. I really like that. So depending on the house, sometimes we just take a satellite Google picture view and we just draw on it. We make red dots for this kind of fixture, yellow dots for this kind of fixture. We add up the watts. We put our critical 4 on it. If you guys don't know what the critical 4 is, that's a whole nother video. But basically, we record the voltage and amperage at the time of install. Sometimes we'll even just take a front picture and draw it if it's a smaller job. And I even have the guys take a video, just a 30-second video showing our trench lines, like if we're going across the grass, because you won't even see those a week or two later. So we just kind of take a quick video. Hey, lead 1 goes to this mulch bed, it's labeled lead 2. That way we can watch the video and we know exactly where our wire is, exactly which lead goes where. And any one of those is acceptable for us, for me.
Sure. Now, can you send that, like if the client's having a sprinkler guy or fence guy, is that something you can actually share with them, or you don't really get that request?
So part of the closing, we will send them a link to that company cam and tell them to file it in their email, under lights or something. We let them know we keep it as well. But that way they at least have it. No lighting contractor, I would say 99%, ever leave the customer with anything.
Right. I agree. Nate, how do you feel about this? I know your skin is probably crawling that we're not out there drawing on our lawn chairs like you, but
well, you got to remember, we didn't even have cell phones when I started, technically, right? So, company cam, all this other stuff. So I don't care how you do it, as long as you do it, whether it be a drawing, whether it be a Polaroid camera. That's what we used to use back in the day. You don't even get right. It's like a Rolodex. You don't know what a Rolodex is. You don't
Rolodex.
know what a Polaroid camera is. That was the trickiest thing. We had Polaroid cameras in every vehicle, right? You would mark with a Sharpie where it was in a tree and shit. Oh my God.
That's awesome.
Right. I went into Staples a couple 4 or 5 years ago, wanting to buy some Polaroid film, and they're looking at me like, "You better go down where the horse stables are at." But anyway, so it doesn't matter what you use, whether it's Google Earth or company cam, as long as you can have some type of a relative scale and be able to document it. That's what's important, right? And then I think when you start, obviously for me, everything's got to be repeatable. So as you start scaling up, you're going to start getting into systems on how you install a job. So for us, we always run all the wire next to the hardscape. So no matter what job that we go to, regardless of the as-built, it's always going to be next to the hardscape. And then as we come out to whether it be a bush or a tree or whatever, right, in the wiring methods, it's always a 90-degree rule. So 90-degree to the hardscape, so it's not spaghetti going in the ground. And you're going to start having these rules. So when you start documenting it, right, it's pretty easy to take the documentation combined with your rules. So, but you cannot maintain those systems without having documentation, because you don't have a platform to where anything was at, right? So I guess
testify to that.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, you have to do the critical forward, again, another video, but yeah. So it doesn't matter how you do it, and they can be fast. You don't have to spend 2 or 3 hours. And then the other thing that we always did, it gets back to me as a homeowner, to where kind of happened when I did my first pool, is at some point where the pumps, what type of pumps are they, what's the sequence of events that happens with all the pumps, how do the valves turn on, and you find out right away that the damn pool guy doesn't leave you any type of as-built. I don't even know how the shit works. So we ended up coming up, and I did it at my own house. I put a mailbox up by the pool equipment, and that's then I found out the sequence of events and the pumps and then the irrigation and then the lighting as-builts. So now we'll put a mailbox on a client's house. We get the weatherproof ones. They just stand it up by the pool equipment, and now you got all the documentation. And that one little thing right there makes the homeowner appreciate everything we've done. It's mind-blowing, because they realize how stupid everybody else is that doesn't give them any documentation, right? And when you're a homeowner and you've got irrigation clocks and that damn landscaper has left you nothing, right? You don't even know how to turn the goddamn thing on, right? Or put it into a manual mode when it loses its Wi-Fi connection, right? Where is this stuff? The mailbox. They love it.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of future considerations too, like we had as builts. I had a problem employee who deleted them. And I learned to, always have backups of everything and do that, which I do now. But so I've had to do maintenance on 200 plus fixture jobs with no as built. And I tell you what, that is a nightmare beyond belief, because I'm pulling up wires out of the ground at that point. I have no idea. I have no idea where the runs are, what you have that many fixtures, just because you find a wire doesn't even mean it's going to be to that light. So I've learned the hard way on as builds being important. It's also important to back them up if you do have them and you trust your employees. Trust, but have a backup.
So obviously we're not going to get into this on this video, but if you didn't have the as built and you went to that 200 light job, and if you would have had the as built, you would take your amp probe, Mr. Amp probe, and you'd be able to identify through obviously records that you had 4 amps on it, and you could amp probe that wire. Technically, if you had 4 amps on it right now, every light bulb's working.
Right.
So different video, but because a lot of times when you're out there doing a maintenance contract, you can't see if the lights are working in the trees because they're in an uplight position. So how do you even maintain them? And don't tell me you're going to get into the tree and clean the lens. I will call you out bullshit that you're doing that. Guys are lazy and they're not getting in the tree, right? So I can't tell you from experience that the client would call and say, oh, you guys were just out here and there's still 3 lights out in the tree, because they're not climbing in the tree to see if the light bulbs are working. So without an amp probe, again, you can't do a lighting job.
Yeah. One last thing I'll talk about on the future considerations. I think we've probably gone for hours and hours on this one. It's just the power supply. So I'm going to quick tell you what I do. Then, I'll ask Shane what he's doing right now. We'll get Nate's opinions on it. So I would say probably 90% or more, I'm always using a 320 watt. I just did a 20 light job, 25 light job, whatever it was. I still put in a 320 watt. I think maybe it's maybe it's $150 extra. Not really sure. Don't really care, because that makes me do 2 things. One, I don't ever have to touch that power supply, in the near future. I know I'm always coming up. I'm always having that enough. I use direct burial, so I don't have to dig one up, put a new one on, all that jazz. But also forces me to remember, like, I need to sell this person more lights because I have power waiting for it, right? So like, it just reminds me, I spent a couple extra bucks on that. I need to do it. So I use 240 sometimes, but 320 is like my main bread and butter, no matter how big the job is, unless it's a very small area. They're getting 320 because I know lighting is addictive. Shane, what do you do? Do you do 240s, 320s, or do you actually do it by the job?
Oh, by the job in a sense. I mean, 320 is probably our most common power supply, but we'll use a 240, if it's just a small cookie cutter home and there's just no landscape or any way that we're going to add 10 more fixtures in the front yard.
Sure.
We use a 240 and we get a lot of those jobs too.
Okay. Yeah. What's your thoughts on that, Nate? Do you think kicking it up is a good idea? Should we just replace it when we sell the job? Am I wasting money buying a bunch of 320s when I don't need them?
Well, again, I revert back to, we have an obligation to do things correct for the homeowner, and I get back to, I'm a homeowner. Nothing pisses me off more when someone doesn't allow me to expand, right, for pennies on the dollar. So when you think about, future considerations in the National Electric Code, you can't go more than 80%, right? So a 320 is not good for 320. It's good for around 270. And then if you add future considerations, whether it's 15 or 20%, so I like to say it's a minimum of 65%. So 65% of 320 is 208 watts, call it 200. So you should never go more than 65%, which is 200 watts. And I would like it like you do, Matt. I know for sure you're at 50% or something. Now it allows you to add an adequate amount, because as you know, to add 10 or 15, 20 lights in a space, it can happen fast. So now you're sitting telling the homeowner, well, we got to add we got to add another transformer. They're kind of pissed off knowing that you should have planned for this, right? So it's not that much money in the beginning. So yeah, so I think between future consideration, adding fixtures, and the 80% National Electrical Code rule, right? Yes, you should always have that ability.
All right, Shane, any final thoughts before I do the closing here?
No, well, maybe. So I'm thinking of a job when you guys are talking that I'm doing next week. I think just sometime. It's only 14 fixtures, and that's pretty maxed out for this front yard. There's nothing really big. There's a couple baby trees. There's one mulch bed. There's no real architecture or peaks or anything that I would add lights to. It would never really make sense to add lights to the side. Maybe his backyard one day. So that job, I mean, we're putting a 240 on instead of a 150, but there's like a maximum of maybe 6 lights that we could ever possibly add to this house. You know, as maybe his trees grow 5-10 years from now. So in that scenario, well, it doesn't make any sense for me to put a 320 on. And there's got to be people listening that are like, you know, in the habit of only doing 10 light jobs. This is a smaller job for us, but starting off, you probably get more of these small jobs than big jobs until you really enhance your design skills and can sell the big jobs. You can't sell the big jobs until you know design and you can close stuff. I couldn't do that 4 or 5 years ago, even.
Yeah. And I'll quick say, Lighting Trade School, you can check us out, lightingtradeschool.com. But when you learn design, you be careful, right? Because I went and learned design from Nate. So the first job I ever closed was $36,000. It was over 100 fixtures. And I called up Nate and I said, Nate, you taught me design. You never taught me what to do, how to install it. And he said, and I quote, "It's fucking easy." That's it. That's the tip he had given me at that time. Now, he had a reason for that. But anyways, learn design because you can sell a job and figure out how to install. So many guys get stuck on, I need to know this, install this, install this, install. Sell the job, and you're much more apt to figure it out real quick. And you get paid to learn. So that being said, we had the Illuminati Lounge Club. That's our monthly membership. We have 1 call a week. We hotspot guys. It's interactive. It's really badass. It's an hour-long call a week. So check that out, lightingtradeschool.com. And that closes it up for number 4, lighting sin number 4, future considerations. Hope you all have a great day. We are heading to Transworld next week. So if you're there, hit us up, come see us at the booth and say hi, get your picture taken. Let's chat.
Well, hey, right. Matt, real quick, buddy.
Yep. Yeah.
We're going to be in Transworld next week, but we're also there's a 3-day seminar for outdoor lighting, permanent lighting, landscape lighting for us on Wednesday, and then Josh Trees with Christmas lighting. So if you're coming to Transworld, you can go early and catch some different lighting, obviously different categories of lighting. And they would find out. Where would they get the ticket?
Live training.
Yeah.
At Nate's compound. Sorry, I'm talking over you, but March.
I'm 17th. Talking over you. Yes. Go ahead, man.
Nate, I just had a good point. March 17th. Also, there's a live training there in Nate's area in California.
Yeah, so check out the website. We got all the info there. Hope you guys have a great week. Go make a ton of money, and we'll see you on the Illuminati Lounge Club call.
To a brighter future always.
To a brighter future.